Have you ever felt like an idiot for being too kind? Have you ever noticed that while you try to act with honesty and empathy, the world around you seems to reward those who lie, manipulate, and play dirty? Maybe you've experienced this at work, in personal relationships, or even in how society itself operates. What if I told you that one of history's greatest writers transformed this dilemma into one of the most powerful novels ever written? In the 19th century, Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote The Idiot, a book that challenges an unsettling idea. Is pure kindness a burden in a world that values cunning? His protagonist, Prince Myshkin, is a man of unshakable goodness. Yet, instead of being admired, he is ridiculed, exploited, and ultimately destroyed. But is Myshkin truly an idiot? Or is he simply someone who refuses to play society's dirty game? This question is just as relevant today. Research shows that generous people often end up at a disadvantage. A University of Berkeley study revealed that highly altruistic individuals tend to be exploited in competitive environments. Meanwhile, those who show less empathy tend to rise faster in social hierarchies. This raises an uncomfortable question. Does being truthful make us weaker? But before we get to the answer, we need to understand the world Dostoevsky lived in. After all, he didn't just write about this dilemma, he lived it. Dostoevsky didn't create Myshkin by accident. His own life was filled with turmoil, forcing him to confront the brutal nature of humanity. In 1849, he was sentenced to death for conspiring against the Tsarist regime. At the very last moment, as he stood before the firing squad, his sentence was commuted and he was exiled to Siberia instead. This experience changed him forever. For years he lived among criminals, murderers, and thieves. But in the midst of all that brutality, he found something unexpected, traces of kindness and redemption, even in the worst individuals. This contradiction shaped his worldview. He realized that the world is not simply divided into good and evil. Kindness is often seen as weakness, while manipulation is necessary for survival. This perception is reflected in The Idiot. Myshkin is not just a man with a pure heart. He is an ideal, a test to see if true honesty can survive in a world built on deception. But is that even possible? The novel throws him into a setting where power and manipulation are the currency, and that's where the real test begins. When Myshkin arrives in St. Petersburg, he stands out immediately. He doesn't seek status, he doesn't manipulate anyone, and he treats everyone with absolute sincerity. His simplicity and honesty are seen as naivety. But does that make him an idiot? Or does he simply expose the cynicism of a society that thrives on deception? Literature often glorifies heroes who are fearless, sharp, and strategic. Myshkin, on the other hand, is a hero of vulnerability. His kindness is not a tactic, nor does it serve a hidden agenda, and that's exactly why he makes people uncomfortable. In a world where everyone hides their true intentions, his transparency is unsettling. He refuses to play by the rules of society, and that makes him an easy target. Studies from the University of Kansas show that altruistic individuals can be taken advantage of in competitive environments. Those who are too generous often end up being ignored or discarded, while those who balance kindness with strategic thinking tend to succeed. Myshkin lacks this balance. His goodness is limitless, making him an easy pawn for those who understand the game. But the problem isn't just him. The society around him is designed to reward deception and self-interest, while punishing those who insist on the truth. Myshkin doesn't realize the danger, and every step he takes leads him deeper into this maze of hypocrisy. Myshkin isn't just a good man in a cruel world. He is an anomaly, a mirror reflecting the contradictions of society. Everyone claims to value honesty, yet in reality, those who master deception and manipulation are the ones who rise to power. This isn't just a theme in The Idiot, it's a reality that still shapes our world today. A Harvard Business Review study found that professionals who are assertive and strategically manipulative are more likely to reach leadership positions than those who are simply competent and well-intentioned. In other words, success is often less about talent or effort and more about knowing how to navigate social and political games. Myshkin doesn't understand this game. He believes that people act in good faith, that truth will always prevail. But by doing so, he becomes an easy target. His mere presence unsettles St. Petersburg's elite, not because he threatens their power, but because his honesty exposes their hypocrisy. Without trying, he reveals the lies they carefully construct. But what if someone like Myshkin actually made it to the top? Would the system adapt to him, or would it crush him before he could change anything? In the real world, those who refuse to play the game rarely get far. But is conforming the only option? Or is there another way to exist without being swallowed by a system built on opportunism? Myshkin doesn't just challenge social rules. He questions their very nature. His unwavering kindness contrasts with a world where morality often seems like a tool of convenience rather than a guiding principle. Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre famously said, "Man is condemned to be free. Every choice comes with consequences, and Myshkin makes a nearly impossible one, to be pure in a corrupt world." But this choice comes at a price. Friedrich Nietzsche warned that traditional morality might be an illusion designed to keep order, not to promote truth. According to him, true strength lies in imposing one's own will upon the world. Myshkin does the opposite. He submits entirely to goodness without expecting anything in return, and is ultimately crushed for it. This leads to nihilism, the belief that traditional values are meaningless. If morality is just a social construct, is it worth following an ethical code that only weakens us? Myshkin refuses to be pragmatic, and instead of his goodness protecting him, it becomes his downfall. But does that mean compassion has no value? Or is the real problem that society cannot handle true sincerity? Myshkin's story was never meant to have a happy ending. His kindness, which should have inspired others, only brought out the worst in them. Nastasia Filipovna, scarred by trauma, doesn't know how to react to his purity. Rogozhin, consumed by jealousy and obsession, responds with violence. Myshkin doesn't intend to challenge them, but his mere existence does. This isn't just fiction. Studies from the American Psychological Association suggest that people who are excessively altruistic often experience social isolation. When someone is too good, it creates distrust because society teaches us to question hidden motives. In the end, it's not just lies that people reject, it's kindness that feels too naive to be real. In the final moments of The Idiot, Myshkin doesn't change the world changes him. His journey, which began as a challenge to society's cynicism, ends in ruin. The world doesn't know what to do with those who refuse to follow its rules. But does this mean that Myshkin was wrong? Or is his downfall the greatest proof that he was right all along? We return to the central question: who is the real idiot? Myshkin, who remains true to himself despite everything, or society, which hides its intentions and rewards deception? The novel forces us to reflect on the cost of authenticity. Being honest may make us vulnerable, but is it worth living behind a mask? The modern world is no different from Dostoevsky's St. Petersburg. At work, on social media, in relationships, we often hide who we truly are, just to be accepted. But is that acceptance worth sacrificing our identity? Maybe Myshkin isn't a fool. Maybe he's one of the few people who see reality without illusions. His story leaves us with a choice. Do we adapt to the game, or do we risk everything to stay true to ourselves? The decision, in the end, is ours.